It's go time.
Welcome to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble with your host, Don Charbin, with special guest, Andrew Hoskins of the Turf District podcast.
Joining us now is Andrew Hoskins of the Turf District. Andrew, you're so good to help us out again. And after a 4-game weekend in the CFL, where if you were on the road like you were, you only got to see the one that you actually were at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you only get to see one, but I mean, you get to see football. That's really what it comes down to. Able to take my son and head down and watch a game and enjoy it. So that's the main part.
From Calgary to Edmonton, it's about, 2.5 hours if you're doing it regular speed?
Yeah, 3 if you're doing it regular speed. But yeah, somewhere in there. So easy to get a hotel room, go down, make a bit of a weekend out of it, get a little walk in the mountains afterwards. It's not such a bad way to spend a weekend before we get into the heavy duty of all of the games that mean something.
That's right. We've got another spate of 4 on Friday night, and then away we go. My wife and I try to double up, as you've seen with us. We go to Calgary first, catch a game there, and catch another game up in Edmonton. I love the fact that we can do a sort of an Alberta tour and catch 2 games in 2 consecutive nights. We've done it out east as well. If you get to Toronto, you hub from there. You can go to Hamilton, Ottawa, Montreal. They're all within train rides, 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of one of the reasons I still haven't gotten out to Regina. I need to, but it's just because it is that kind of single stop, and I'm usually following my team. At some point we will get out there for sure, but haven't had the chance as of yet. But Edmonton's going to play in Calgary, then it's pretty easy for me to just jaunt down and check out the game.
Preseason or regular season, it's always fun to be at a football game. And I was a little surprised that the CFL kind of ran, not exclusively, but ran the games against each other. But I think what they're trying to do with all of that is make it fair for everybody so that everyone sort of has the same cut down time and everything like that. So no team gets an extra advantage by playing earlier, later.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're, when you're going down to watch some of these games, when I go down to watch a preseason game, I'm not going down to watch the score as much as I am. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to win, but I'm not down there to watch the score. I'm down to watch who are these bubble guys and how are they performing in these games. And like you said, you want to make sure that everybody has the same cut down time, and we know that there's going to be cuts coming. These guys, this is their chance to show out and make sure they're going to hit that roster.
Yeah, and it's in that first game you typically don't see a lot of the starters get onto the field, or they may be there for a few shakes. The offensive line might be the exception, but for the most part, receivers, they may get a look and then they're sitting down because you want to see the guys that are on that bubble, as you mentioned. We saw that with the game. Let's go back to even the very start, Calgary and BC, where you saw the Stampeders employ quarterbacks, but not Vernon Adams Jr. You've got to get these guys in game action and understand how they're going to react. And for Edmonton, behind Trey Ford, you've got to look to see who's going to be the backup. If Cody Fajardo is in that role, then what is going to be your third stringer?
Yeah, I think the bigger battle will be between McElwain and Snyder, who just joined the team Monday before. So I think that it's a tough decision. We're curious to see how they go with that. But I still think they're going to need 4. So I feel like there'll be one that'll be a third guy and one that'll be on the practice roster. Cody's definitely the backup. I mean, when you're testing guys that are on the bubble, not so bad to be with a guy who was the Grey Cup MVP a couple of years ago.
It's been said a couple of times, hey, you've got 3 Grey Cup winning quarterbacks as backups in this league right now.
Yep.
How many times has that happened in our history? I did have Steve Daniel on the podcast. That one will be coming out soon. Asked him that question. It just doesn't happen much.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and especially when you look at the one from last year is a backup quarterback. Like it's a little bit funny that you see these guys, but it shows maybe the strength now of that quarterback position in the CFL and the ability for them to help these younger guys come up and learn the game and figure out a way to start the right way, shall we put it that way.
Well, one thing that Steve Daniel is very high on, and that is how many players played in 2024 that are on teams in 2025. If that number is high, the quality of play goes up, everything goes up with it. If it's low, as it was in 2021, then the quality of play suffered because there was a lot of rookies finding their way through the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we started going to camp for the Elks here, it was like, wow, there's a lot of guys that we already know are going to be in these spots, and they've been there coming from Toronto and now going to be starting here, but they were in that starting spot before. They already know what they're going to be doing, and the rookie guys, they're going to make it on teams, right? They're going to make it another way, and be given the chance to learn those positions as they from these guys who have played a while. So I'm excited to see how that plays out, because it's not like we know there's going to be injuries, so we're probably going to see these guys at some point, but at least they get the chance to learn and not trial by fire, as we've had a lot in the last few years.
I've sort of made a little joke about this with a couple of friends. As Mark Killam went into the room to introduce himself to the team, he had to wait for all the players to introduce themselves to each other because there's been so much change in Edmonton.
Yeah, to some degree, when you look at the offensive line, the biggest change is you have David Beard coming back, who did play with some of these guys already, including Mark Cordy, both in university and in professional. And then you look at they're bringing in a guy like Gregor McKellar. He's playing in a guard position, a right guard position, so he's got a little help between David Beard and Brett Boyko. Think that it's not nearly as big a transition there. The defensive line, 3 of the guys played together last year, so but do they have to introduce themselves to the linebackers and things like that? Sure. But I do think that it's kind of interesting how there is some continuity in some of those positions, and I think that'll go a long way to help.
Absolutely. I do agree with you, because there are enough players that have stayed with the team, certainly that'll show them the ropes. And then with a new regime, we see one in BC as well. There's always going to be these growing pains. You have to sort of figure out what the coach wants and where you're supposed to be given this assignment. Those are types of things that even veterans have to go through when you're getting a new playbook.
Yeah, for sure. And we saw that in that preseason game with BC and Calgary. Rourke, what did he play? Like 3 series and handed it off all 3 times. I'm like, well, it's not really okay. It is kind of interesting that you have a new regime. You're trying to learn what are the calls, what are where is everybody supposed to be, on top of okay, let's perform to our highest level and try and make this team. So yeah, preseason is always like chaotic, which is kind of fun. There's also parts where you're like, oh, really? That's just part of preseason football. For me, being that I've gone 6 months, 7 months almost without any football. That's not true. I guess I do watch the NFL, so I have watched some football, but not Canadian football. Even just getting down into the stands is awesome.
Being in the stands, and I get to go this upcoming weekend. The Riders are at home. One of the things I want to talk to you about, it's not for the Elks, the Stampeders, and the Lions, because they're sort of doing a round table of meeting each other, but for everybody else in the league, it's home and home.
Right.
In the preseason. And it's the sort of derbies where it's typically your closest opponent that you're going to get to see twice. What do you think of that?
I don't mind it, actually, just because of the fact that you want to keep the travel costs down for the teams. I do think that doing the home and home with kind of your closest team is a good idea. I'll be curious to know if they continue to do that, if they change the circle in the West a little bit. But I'm curious to know just how that kind of plays out. But I do like the idea of it just being close. It kind of brings up some rivalries. It kind of gives everybody a chance to see some of the other teams, but all the teams are playing vanilla playbooks anyway, so it's not like giving away secrets for the season or anything like that, but it does give just, a little bit of a measuring stick too against going against the same kind of teams throughout the league.
One of the things that has come up, and this was just prior to the Rough Riders leaving for Winnipeg, Corey Mace got upset at practice with all the shenanigans, we'll call them that, with players getting angry at each other. This happened last year, September 17th, just prior to their big game in Calgary. But I don't often remember or do I even remember this happening in preseason where the players were going at it and the coach sent them for wind sprints? That didn't seem to solve anything, and put them in the locker room and said, that's it, we're done today.
Well, we saw that quite a bit actually with Chris Jones, especially in training camp. They're competing for jobs. It was very dog eat dog, right? Like you needed to really show up, and you weren't really cheering on your teammate as much as going against them. And so we did see more scraps, right? There was a couple of times where we did see Chris Jones just be like, okay, we're done for today. That's it. Now, one of them was because he just thought they weren't putting in the effort. But one was because there was like a fourth scrap or something that had happened. So it's interesting how that does happen. And I've noticed, and I said this on my show this last week, was I was surprised being that I was at camp for 8 days with the Elks and there was one little scuffle, but really that's about it. They're still competing. They're still trying to find that spot. I think it does come down to what is the temperature as it gets set up in camp. Corey Mace just wanted to reset that a little bit. Guys, like we're competing, but you got to be as happy for the guy beside you as you are for yourself kind of idea. And it's not a bad thing to kind of hit that reset button every now and again.
Well, especially you have to hit that reset when it's the offensive line taking on the defensive line. They don't need to be doing that. I know that sometimes you get upset over a guy coming up high on you or something like that, but it's training camp. Things are going to happen. The fact that they got into so many skirmishes and wind sprints, they come back out and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Corey Mace is like, okay, this is not happening under my watch. Now, of course, I mentioned September 17th of last year. The same thing happened. Sent them to the locker room. At that time, it was the leaders on the team, the guys that you expect. And they went around the room and said, look, guys, that's not the way we're going to be from here on out. Wondering if he's hoping for the same sort of response.
Yeah, probably. If it worked once before, why not try it again, right? Yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing. Camp is supposed to be a competition. These guys are playing to get the paycheck. I was never totally against having a scrap or two, but once it gets out of hand, then you're like, okay, you know what? Somebody's going to get hurt. And the whole idea is we kind of want to hit week one healthy. And Ed Hervey said that to us on Fan Day. The whole reason we're running the camp the way we are is so that we hit week one healthy, because the healthier team, even getting into the start of the year, has a leg up on everyone else.
And that's actually a great point that Ed Hervey mentions, because last year there were 89 events and practices that put guys out for a while.
Right.
Something happened at practice, whether they got tangled up, whatever it was. Injuries, you don't want to come out of preseason with a whole bunch of guys on the shelf. The Rough Riders have already got a few, and they haven't even finished their preseason schedule. It just, you don't need that. And football in and of itself is a violent game. We know that. But the fewer injuries you can get away with, the better. And the league is doing better with the rule changes. We saw the 6 spot that they put up. Quarterbacks are far better protected. That automatic ejection is a great thing.
Oh, 100%. With the rule changes, I was very excited about that one. Like, you just can't hit a quarterback in the head or in the legs. If you're gonna hit him in the middle. That's what it's supposed to be. I was okay with the way that they handled that. Probably the one I was the most excited about is the major foul going right the full distance or going to at least the 1, because to me, it didn't make sense that you'd be on the 20-yard line and then you could tee off on a quarterback and only get a 10-yard penalty. Like, what would be what's holding you back, right? I really liked that they took that away and put it right on the 1, more chance to score and protect the quarterbacks a little bit. So and they also protecting wide receivers. You're catching the ball, your feet are on the ground, you get tackled below the knee, that's a penalty. I like the idea of the safety behind both of those things, or all 3 of those things. That's a great move for players' health and safety, which is what we need so that we can have these guys playing longer and on the field more, because that's what makes the game so exciting.
If you think about it, it's moving back to its rugby roots. And I've used that as a show title before. But it really is. In rugby, it's hips to shoulders.
Right.
That's where you're supposed to go. I know football will say above the knees to shoulders, but if you can keep it confined to that area, then there are going to be far fewer injuries, and guys aren't going to be taking level cheap shots if the penalty is you're tossed.
Absolutely.
Because that's a paycheck.
Yeah, I agree. Why? Yeah, you don't want to be pushed out. Nobody wants to hit the showers early and miss out on on some dollars. But just it's a good idea just to put it in there and make sure that everybody's playing as clean as they can, but still within the realm of the game.
And the other good news the CFL's come out with is in 2015, they had 76 concussions that were reported. Last year, it was 38. Now, that's helmet technology, but that's also rules and understanding how to play the game right.
I think it's partly that. I think it's also partly because we saw the institution of the Guardian caps definitely helps protect when they are doing the padded practices. Starting to see some guys wear them in games, and I think that's, again, it's a move in the right direction to try and protect the guys a little bit, and really great numbers to be basically cut in half.
George Hopkins, equipment manager with the Calgary Stampeders, has said on this podcast that Riddell is coming out with a helmet. It may not be ready just yet, but it's going to be as good as a player with a helmet and a Guardian cap, which that means the technology is just jumping forward and player safety being paramount for these manufacturers.
Of course.
But they're doing the right thing by figuring this out.
If they can make it like a combo, then more players are going to wear it. The more players that wear it, the less likely they are to get dinged up. And we had Linda Wood Edwards on our show, and now doing regular segment for us. And she was, she's been heavily involved with the alumni, and a lot of these guys that she's dealing with in the alumni, they didn't have the benefit of these types of things. And there's a reason there's a fund to help them, a support fund, because they took a beating as the heroes for us to watch. I'm all about gladiator sports, but I'd kind of like the guy to have a life after.
Oh, I'm with you as well, and it's kind of a tough thing to deal with. I had an interview with Tom Forzani, for instance, and he talked about playing in that 1970s era, and we didn't have it on the podcast, but the turf was just like basically rubbered over concrete and he just hated it. And every time you went down, you didn't know if it was a carpet burn or worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And they would wear the tape all over their arms just to try and prevent the carpet burn. But a lot of times it was a lot worse. And also in those days, right, it was somebody gets popped and they stand up and how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Right? He just got his bell rung a little bit. He'll be okay. And that's obviously not the way to deal with that. And we know that now. Know better, do better, right?
If you don't learn from your past, you're condemned to repeat it, as is always said. The CFL really matters to them because, as you say, to play another game is one thing, but to live a life afterward is quite another.
Yeah, 100%. And I've met a number of alumni. I love them being able to regale stories, but if they get to the point where they can't regale the stories because they're struggling, we don't want that either. We don't want that for any of our heroes.
I'm Derek Taylor, the voice of the Bombers on 680 CJOB, and I listen to the Third Down Gamble podcast.
Another thing that's happening, and this is not today, but it is in LA in a couple of years, and that is the Olympics. Flag football is going to be there. Now, the NFL has come out and said one player from every team is going to be eligible to be a part of that NFL participation in the Olympics. The thing about that is great, but the NFL doesn't have a schedule to worry about. The CFL to do the same thing, and Stuart Johnson is in favor of having the CFL participate. How does that impact the schedule? It'll be about either week 7, week 8, week 9, somewhere in that summer. But what do you do? And the NFL has also said that they'll allow one international from every team to play for somebody else. And there's a little bit of a rub to that. What if you've got 3 from 3 different countries? Who gets to be the one that gets to play?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one, but I at least I know, like you said, with the NFL, it's not really interfering with their schedule at all. It's interfering probably with their preseason, but that's about it. Whereas in the CFL, it's kind of dead center in the whole playing of the season. So I'm kind of a little mixed on this, and the reason I say that is because there are so many athletes that have spent so much time playing flag football. Specifically, it is a different body type. It is a different play style. Like there's a lot of different tricks and things that you wouldn't do in a tackle game, but you do in a flag game. I kind of don't want to take positions away from those guys. And so I haven't really landed on how do we support a guy that they want on this team that is playing on a CFL team and yet not ruin the CFL game at the same time. Now, depending on how long that tournament is going to go, can you put everybody on a bye week and the people that are playing go down to play? I guess logistically you could do that. The trick is what happens if that player gets injured, or if you have, say, somebody like BC, and let's say you have 3 or 4 guys that are available to go down and play, but Calgary isn't sending anybody. Well, is that I don't know what you know what I mean? Like, it just becomes like, well, that guy gets injured or played the bye week and the other people did got a week off. So I mean, playing for your country is one thing, and I don't want to rob guys of doing that, but I just feel like there's limited players that play tackle football that are the right style for flag football.
Yeah, you need a mobile quarterback, number one, a guy with a good arm. But the other thing is you need extremely agile receivers. Because
and DBs.
The game is not built on blockers.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. There's no blockers. Don't get me wrong. They run picks and all those kind of things, but you need agile wide receivers and DBs that can catch these guys after they catch the ball and be able to rip that flag. Like, it's not just, you can't just run across the field and pop the guy. So yeah, I think it's a different skill set. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The commissioner's in favor of it, which is great, but I really want to know what the logistics and what the plan would be to make that happen.
And you bring up an interesting point. This maybe has to do more with the NHL and hockey, but certainly now that flag football is coming along and the NFL and the CFL are going to participate. But make it a U23 tournament. Only guys that are up to the age of 23 can participate. So you won't get a Tom Brady or somebody like that that's going over there to play. Make it a young person sport. Whether female or male, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I also haven't kept up enough with, are they going to have male, female co-ed, or is it just one or the other? It's, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't followed it close enough to know. I'm excited to see some great playing, and I was excited when they said flag football was there. I was just thinking it would be more of the amateur athlete, because I love when the hockey guys play in the Olympics too, but I also still feel like, well, you already get paid to play that sport. So Olympics should be about those amateur people too that that's when they get a chance to shine, and they're not really giving that chance by having these guys in there. So double-edged sword, maybe.
Here's a thought too. What if the World Juniors every 4 years becomes the team that goes to the Olympics instead of the NHL? Make it the junior athletes and move their tournament right into the Olympics.
Yeah, I would support that too. Although the U18 is a big deal.
U20.
Yeah, is a huge deal here in Canada for sure. But yeah, I mean, maybe they do something along those lines just to balance it out a bit. But I get that you think that not you. I should say, lots of people think, you want to have the best athletes in because it's the Olympics, and I get that. But I like I said, I don't mind if they had it where these people who only get the excitement every 4 years, to give them that excitement too.
If you're an NFL owner and you're looking at one of your top receivers, say Jefferson out of Minnesota, are you going to really release him to go do this? Are you going to take that chance? You're paying the guy how many million a season?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another side of it, right? And that's what and you were even saying, right? If there's 3 guys that can go, are you going to send all 3, or like all 3? Are there all 3 starters on your team, or how's that going to?
The NFL, it's only going to be 1 and 1. So it's going to be 1 American and 1 international. That's it.
Right.
That's all they're letting go.
Right. But even then, like you said, then who do you pick?
Well, that's it.
Right. Then you have another guy that, I don't get to play for my country, and you decided it. Like, I don't know about that either. So
it's rife for upset.
Yep.
It absolutely is. Because let's say if you're Curtis Rourke and you're with the 49ers at that time, and Team Canada comes calling and says, we want you. The 49ers said, I'm sorry, we've designated that receiver already.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It's a interesting can of worms, being this first time that flag football's even been there, much less including people who are already playing professionally. Interesting little twist.
It's growing pains, right? You have to do it the first time to find out what is going to work, what isn't. You learn from your mistakes, and for the next go around in 2032, you improve it. And it's so great, too, that women are going to be playing in flag football as well. This isn't just a male-specific sport now. Football is everybody. And that translates into coaching in the CFL. And there has been female players in U Sport, in NCAA. The chances of a woman playing in the Canadian Football League, the NFL, keep growing every day.
Yeah, which is outstanding. Definitely excited about that. If they can come in and compete and show what they can do and be successful, that's awesome.
I think it would be wonderful for everybody involved to break down those barriers even further. Andrew, thank you so much. Where can people find and follow you on the socials? I know we're going to have to make you a co-host on this podcast eventually. If you want that billing, just let me know.
Well, I've been here a few times. As I always say, I love coming on to chat football. Not a problem at all to hang out with you and talk a bit more about some of the goings on. For my show, if you want, check us out at the Turf District. And we're usually live on Tuesday nights at 7:30 Mountain, but the audio comes out usually the next day. And both Superfan Mike, Commissioner Kayla, myself, and now Linda, who has joined the team, doing First Down This Beer, which is outstanding and fun. Join us and have a little fun with us as we kind of go through the CFL season.
Third Down Gamble uses the expert resources of the Canadian Football League and 3 Down Nation. For up-to-date, insightful statistics and analysis, please visit cfl.ca and 3downnation.com. The CFL on CBC theme music is used with written permission from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you for listening to our show. Third Down Gamble is hosted on Podbean. Follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @ThirdDownGamble. Join us again next time. The Third Down Gamble Podcast. Audio worth watching.